something happened, some crazy disease. Ok, let me introduce you in Italian. Ok, ciao a tutti, bentornati. Eccoci qui, abbiamo come ospite oggi Jake Black. Jake Black lo ricorderete perché lui è un frontman dei Tenacious D e anche ha fatto il famoso film School of Rock. No, puttanata, non è vero. No, Jake è un regista. Jake è colui che ha fatto una delle serie di VR experience più vendute, più famose al mondo, ovvero quella di Spiderman. I'm explaining that you did the Spider. I mean, probably this is the most famous one.
I heard Spider-Man. Yep, I picked that up from the Italian.
Get it. And he's in LA. You're in LA right now, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
He's in LA, and he works in the industry since a while, and it's a good friend, We met in China, we spent good time together. Siamo stati insieme, abbiamo passato un po' di tempo insieme. Adesso volevamo un attimo chiedere anche a lui che cosa sta succedendo dal punto di vista dei nuovi media. You work also in marketing, if I'm not wrong. I mean, your company's been doing marketing trailers and some kind of promotion, for Hollywood films. Usually, this is
Yeah, movie trailers has been my industry, and then how that spread into game trailers, and then interactive.
How does it work usually? I mean, the studio, they call you and they say, okay, we have this film, we want to market this way.
Yeah, right? So they always have the like the normal requests. They have their trailers, they have their TV spots, they have online trailers, or obviously depending on the kind of movie. Whether it's a big blockbuster, they might take it to Comic-Con or have like stunts, or if it's a smaller movie, they might really try to target it at certain audiences. And that's all pretty standard and known.
What happens when they tell you we want to sell the trailer to looks like different from the way the film it is? Make you an example. I'm a friend with the Nicholas Winding Refn, the director of Drive. If you watch the trailer, you think it's an action film, but actually it's a drama. And but of course the film has to sell. Sometimes they have to pick the audience and bring it there. My film as well, I try to give it more like thriller angle, which is not really the film. So it's something that happened, right? So it's also a really creative process to try to understand immediately what the audience want.
Yeah, and what a lot of people don't realize about movie trailers is that typically there are several competing trailers from different agencies, and a lot of times the clients at the studios will take different directions with each vendor, with each agency. So they might say, I want you to amplify like the comedy in this one, but this other studio I want to really like amp up the drama, or this one is the action, but this one is like the heartfelt one.
Because I like the actors, I like the story.
Like sometimes they just don't really know what's going to resonate when they have the trailer, because the other thing, like you said, sometimes the trailer doesn't feel like the movie. Well, what a lot of times happens is we make the trailer before there is a movie. We'll get dailies.
So the editing happens in the same time that they are actually editing the film.
Yeah, I mean, we've started on trailers before they started shooting. Like reading the script, doing what's called a paper cut. So you could say like, okay, I think we can use this scene and this scene. None of that really matters in the end, but at least like you're starting to think about the problems that you might encounter, or like the highlights that you might want to show off. And that happens very rarely. I mean, that's really for like the biggest of the big movies. But as they start shooting, sometimes, again, depending on the scale of the film, they might start sending the dailies to the agencies to start cutting with. So we've done that on dozens of movies. And then
recently something changed in the structure of the trailers. I noticed some people complain because you watch the trailer and it's giving you a lot of spoilers. Basically, they make a summary. They summarize the story, the whole story. And I heard the reason is that because the audience changed, the people want to see exactly what they go to watch. So what is going to happen when we have a twist or something like that?
Yeah. No, and it's tricky because ultimately, um, it's up to the studio leadership and team, like, about what they want to show in a trailer. Nothing gets past them, and sometimes the strategy is just like whether or not there's enough interesting happenings in like the first part of a movie where there are like fewer stakes, and sometimes it's just not enough, and they want you to put in more just to make it. Like, you got to also think is like a lot of times people will. It's not like the old days where you're sitting. Their primary audience is not in theater. Their primary audience is probably on their phone, and so they're really trying to compete with social media and Instagram style, like scroll, just endless scrolling, and then a trailer comes up and you have to grab them immediately. And so it's a lot different to try to build suspense and tease and all that. I remember early in my career, I went to a movie. I think it was actually the last Indiana Jones movie, Indiana Jones 4, and the trailer before it was the trailer for Benjamin Button, and like, I think that's one of the best trailers ever made.
Film with Brad Pitt. Yeah.
Yep. Because it was so mysterious and so moody, and you really didn't know what it was about at all. But it just painted such an amazing picture. But you're sitting there for 2.5 minutes in a darkened theater, and you're like in the moment. And if I saw that same video on my phone, even me, like today, I would probably be like, all right, let's cut to the chase. Like, what are we really watching here? So I think just as, with phones and social media, like the eyes are so much harder to capture, so that to market a film, accurately or anything like that is like, it's very difficult.
Yeah, people, they have less attention now, mostly, the younger generations. And so, what happened basically when VR was rising as a big thing, some studios, they thought, okay, maybe we can make a VR experience instead of a trailer. And then where you come, if I remember right, one of the first things you did was the walk.
Yep.
Right? You did it. And that's great genius. I actually experienced it, and then I understood what was virtual reality, the power of I used to say, digging inside the pineal gland, they really dig inside of the brain, because I suffer vertigo.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, but I know exactly where I am. It's not just I'm walking on the line, but indeed, the machine is able to trick the brain.
Yeah.
And that's great, because if we can, if you can make it work neurologically, the chemistry that gives vertigo, we can create everything. That was the great key, for the time. And then you had this great intuition, of course, that made the difference, which you also bring in a spectacular way into the Spider-Man experiences.
Yeah, the walk was, so that was the Robert Zemeckis film from about 2015, I think, and based on the documentary Man on Wire. So it was a real story.
Which won the Oscar, if I'm not wrong.
I think so, a best documentary.
The Academy Award was best documentary. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is definitely, and it's a famous story, right, of the Philippe Petit, the acrobat that walked on the tightrope between the World Trade Center buildings. And so it was such a perfect movie to do what we did. And it was really in the early days of like the current wave of VR, because, when we had even pitched it, there was no such thing as positional tracking. So, like moving your head or walking around, that didn't exist. And then when we got partway through it, that, the Oculus Development Kit 2 was released, which was the first one to have the positional tracking. But it was only like a 6 foot, barely that. But it was just enough. And I remember the first time that we did it, we just built a gray box version where you're standing on top of the World Trade Center and you're looking down. And I remember I could look over the edge and my stomach tightened. And so, like you said, like it works on this like very physical level. where you know where you are. Your brain knows you're in an office or whatever, but your body is telling you something different. And that's when we knew it would work, because that was unlike anything, I've ever experienced. And so we took that and really learned from it, because there are so many really subtle pieces to creating a good immersive experience. And it's easy to say, but hard to do, where it's like, you just need to increase the immersion factor. You can call that presence as well. And there are a lot of tricks for that, that you can do, that people don't even realize, with the walk, where you're walking on a tightrope, people just naturally put their hands out to balance, even though they don't need to. And so what we started doing was encouraging that, because you're putting your body into a position that is emphasizing to your brain and your subconscious that you're doing that action, like that you are tightrope walking. And we had a little, just tiny, like, piece of rubber that you would walk on, so your foot had something to feel that felt like a tightrope. And so these real subtle cues, like, really push your mind over the edge to believing it. Yeah. And so when we did that with Spider-Man for a home download, there wasn't the equivalent. We couldn't put physical things in the person's space. They'd have to play it, maybe on their couch, at best standing up in front of their TV, but we couldn't have them walk around or anything like that. But what we found is, with Spider-Man, he's got the web shooter, like that kind of thing. And so, it was really great to emphasize just that kind of motion. And, we did two Spider-Man experiences. The first one was a little more static, but the second one, you actually swung around, and it was really, really physically gratifying, because you felt like Spider-Man, because your hands, you were going like this, just like you would if you were Spider-Man swinging down the street.
And that became really popular. I actually have to tell you, here in Beijing, they still have it in the location-based place where they do VR. There is a place close to like a park where we go with my daughter, and sometimes I go to look, like, it's still there. I think it's probably the most popular in the world, maybe after Beat Saber. Probably it's the Spider-Man one is this. Of course, it's because it's Spider-Man.
It's Spider-Man, and it was free, which was also great. Because anybody could download it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also really, really exciting. That's something that could really figure out what you can really do. In actually in a VR game. In the future, but then everything happened, right? Everything changed. I mean, what happened when? In some way, the VR, or we say XR bubble, changed. Somebody said it blew away. It's always this talking about VR is dead, it's not dead. What is going on? Actually, things changed. The thing went in the direction of the metaverse, which became a word that everybody knew about. You remember we were talking about it at the times, but then it became, the new trend before AI. Now it's the new trend. And but I want to know your opinion about it.
Well, it's funny. I literally sent an email that said almost exactly word for word what you just said. So what I've found in the last 10 years or so in Hollywood and that world, since essentially the VR part of it was kind of the second wave. The first wave of this kind of new, like the tech crazes. The first tech craze that I was a part of was like the 3D movies and the 3D TV, right? Mm-hmm. Probably 10 years ago, a little bit more, something
10,
like
12
that.
years ago, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, movies all went 3D. And then I learned a lot about that because we just had to do it. When we deliver a trailer, I was in charge of the motion graphics for the trailer. So like the titles and all of that. So we were creating that from scratch, and we had to learn how to make it properly in 3D, and there's a lot more of an art to it than I ever thought there would be. But so when I got into that and became, like pretty good at it in that world, like a lot of people want to know how you do it or your opinion, or like, but then there's also this sort of like promotional element where, trying to sell 3D TVs or 3D Blu-rays or whatever. And so there's this kind of like little hype bubble that forms around it. And then, so after that 3D part, that kind of transformed into like the VR part, and we did that for a while. And then when people were struggling to make money with VR, the next bubble was AR, with like HoloLens or Magic Leap or what have you. And then it became kind of like, no, it's XR, right? Which is sort of a cop-out, just to say anything, right? But then after that, it became, and especially because that's around like when COVID hit, it became virtual production, right? So this is where all of these people that are like in like tech and Hollywood, they kind of shift, for whatever's hot and try to find like where they can really make money, but also look cool, what they're doing. So it went to, well, actually with XR to the metaverse, like you said, because that was the big push from Meta. And then virtual production, because they thought, okay, now we can actually really do this in Hollywood and take advantage of our real-time skills and our Unreal Engine skills and make this into like a real business. And then that's going okay, but it's still very expensive and kind of niche. It's not standard by any means. And then all of that money or anybody that wasn't in that is now in AI. So like you said, so there's this real like chasing the soccer ball, in that world.
Chasing investments. The thing is that when you make 100%. A name as a tech company and you have some kind of exposure, still now in the Cannes Film Festival, in the CES, in the Venice, they have the area for virtual reality. You've seen all of that. I have to say in China, not anymore. I mean, there is still some location-based place, but but here they are more conservative. They want to see results right here, right now. That's the thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Not to interrupt, but the VR, like the easy money was when it was like, oh, somebody just wants to look cool. Some client wants to look cool and high tech, so they're going to pay $1 million for a VR experience, and then you can capitalize on that. That's all pretty much gone. Not entirely, but more or less. You can't build an industry on that. But what you were saying is true, where it's just shifted, right? And so now there is an actual ecosystem of these headsets where developers can, make a profit on a game, because there's enough headsets out there, especially like the Quest 2 really like escalated that and got to a saturation level that's, like a console, like a PlayStation or a Nintendo.
Yeah.
And then so those people that were hanging on and now are, have their development chops and know what they're doing, they can release games and actually, sustain a business that way. It's not a huge business, but it's definitely there and it's a business. And that's awesome. I mean, we were waiting for that for years. And that's really taken hold. And so it's not one of those things where like, oh, it took over the world, like everybody kind of was like, oh, expecting or thought it might. But it's definitely taken a foothold, and it will grow and grow slowly until that one piece of hardware hits that actually makes it what people want it to be. And that piece of hardware might not come for decades, but it's inevitable at some point.
Yeah. It's worth to keep on trying. And so are you still developing 360?
No, so I do a little bit of VR work here and there, but most of
indeed you made a name from what you did, no? So you had exposure. So somebody's looking for. Actually, I'm talking to the audience also. Somebody's looking, for somebody, besides me. There is there is actually him, that he did really great things, So I guess sometimes when somebody still has some idea that might fit into it.
And I do a VR project every year or two, I would say. I have a couple, pitches kind of circulating that may or may not go anywhere. Who knows? But even when I think it's not going to happen again, somebody always reaches out, and we make something. And what's great is that we're not in the situation where we used to be, where it's kind of like you have to just take what comes, and you can't, you have to make the business out of it. So you can't really afford to say no. But now with the business that I run and all of that, I can really only take on projects that I want to and that I enjoy and that I think are worth it. I did a project during the pandemic with a couple of friends of mine that was, almost no intent to ever make its money back. It was purely like a documentary, meant for museums, more or less. And it was really beautiful, and it was just like a passion project. And it was really gratifying to work that way rather than trying to figure out, some arbitrary deadline, some gimmick to, hook and, make people kind of like, whoa, freak out, like VR, it was really just trying to make something beautiful, like to take advantage of that medium, that, like, just like you said earlier, like really trigger something that can't be done in any other medium,
Have you been involved also in virtual worlds? Somebody asked you if you wanted to build something in the metaverse. What's your perception of that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been asked to. We don't really do that, but I'm not against it. But I think that it's not going to be, the concept of the metaverse is like something to aspire to, but that it's not going to be something that's going to happen quickly or driven by one company. It's not Ready Player One. Just the same way that the internet wasn't, like it's not like Microsoft put out.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. I have the same perception that you have. So it's basically open world games. So any open world game can become, it depends, what the people want. And also, they update constantly, the technology change. So, okay, let's say that maybe Fortnite, which has a very huge fan base, might last for a long time, but indeed not forever, at least one generation, maybe, that's.
But you know what, though? You know what? I think they are actually the closest to building a metaverse than anybody's gotten.
You mean
and
Fortnite?
That is, because of, are you familiar with the Unreal Fortnite integration?
Yeah.
Yeah, so now anybody can download these tools.
You explain a little bit so the audience can understand.
Yeah, so it's called like UEFN, Unreal Engine Fortnite, but it's essentially a custom version of Unreal that lets you build kind of whatever you want within the world of Fortnite, and then share it with people.
Let me explain 1 second in Italian. Praticamente come sapete, diversi mondi virtuali hanno il loro engine in modo tale che tu debba lavorare con quell'engine. L'idea che hanno usato su Fortnite è prendere fondamentalmente una loro versione di Unreal. It's Unreal 4 or Unreal 5? 5. Di Unreal 5 e customizzarla per costruire tutto quello che volete su Fortnite, insomma, quindi creare le vostre sim, creare le vostre ambientazioni. Excuse me, just because it's a complicated thing and probably in English they will not understand.
It's okay. My Italian's a little rusty, so it's better that you explain it.
What can you say in Italian? I bet spaghetti, pizza, what else?
Prego.
Great.
That's about it. It's embarrassing. I don't want to insult your people.
You are perfect for a Scorsese's film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
But no, like, so, I think like what they're doing there is really compelling because, and I think it's the most representative of what a metaverse might be. Even though like the kind of like pop culture version of it is VR or immersive. I think it's actually really important and really great that it's starting as just a 2D experience, because essentially it needs to be building blocks, right? The idea that people have of like the metaverse is something where anybody can build a world, and like I can go to your world and check out, you know, how you see the world, or how you want to see the world, or this creation that you made, and then, you know, go through another door, and then you know, see somebody else's, or what, you know, it's like it's this interconnected thing that has to have a shared common language. And since Fortnite is so gigantic, you know, it has a really great head start for building that foundation. You know, to build whatever you want. I mean, you've seen like they have all sorts of different games. Like, you know, they're not going to last legally, but you know, people recreating Mario games in the Fortnite engine and things like that. You know, like that's what people really want out of a metaverse, is to jump between those things pretty seamlessly. And so a lot of the past implementations
it's a
from
generation of gamers, correct? So you know, this is what they're used to.
Yeah, and you know what? With younger generations, with them, like they're just used to spending their time in those games or online in ways that even, you know, I grew up using the internet and all that, but it's a different kind of, like, that's where their entire social lives are, you know? And so it's only going to become more and more normal that they do those things that are not even games, but maybe they're interactive, and that's just where they like hang out, like a VR chat, you know, like that's not a game. You know, but it's natural for some people to, like, who cares if it's a game or not, you know, like that's just kind of the ecosystem that they live in. And so as those things become more and more common and more accepted, and just the norm, that's how I think the metaverse will start to kind of build on itself.
Look, let's go to the main arguments. Actually, I wanted to know: are you striking?
You know, I am not a part of any of those unions or anything. I don't work directly with Hollywood too much anymore. Just a little, you know, like here and there. But I have, you know, like that's all of my friends and my community and all that. You know, we're all on the edge of it. So we come from the post-production world, right? For trailers,
Actually,
or for VR.
let me, because we often do these streaming shows with a friend which is working there in LA, you know, for the Blue Mouse, no? Matteo, ciao Matteo, se sta ascoltando. And they have to strike. He told me they have to, but of course, because you know, they work for them. He's doing post production as well, but they work directly inside of the studio.
Got it.
So in your case, I wanted to see how's the situation, because you are more like you know, you provide for a service. If you really don't want, you know, it just if the production, they are stuck, you know, nothing is happening, you will not get job. You know, what is going on? You know, try to explain me better, you know.
Yeah, so in the post-production world of, at least in trailers and marketing and you know, experiential, right now it's actually business as usual. Nothing has really slowed down or affected that, because it, you know, just thinking about the post world, we're working on things that were shot, you know, 1 to 12 months ago, right? And so as the creators have had time to put together the show or the movie or whatever it might be, you know, they'll hand it over, and then, you know,
and indeed, when the strike will be over, which probably is going to be in October, November, or December, probably, you will not be, the post-production will not really be affected. This is why they say that actually this strike and this situation in general is giving more power to the post-production service.
I hadn't heard that.
Because it is about it.
Yeah.
It is about it, actually. One of the arguments is that, you know, the studios, or at least, you know, the platforms, they want to have more post-production. I mean, all the AI thing, you know. I don't know if you're using AI or not. For sure you're doing, but anyway, you know, the thing is, you know, what they want is to have less people involved, less employees, you know, at any level.
Yeah. Well, you know, right now the post-production industry is unaffected, but in 3, 4, 5 months, it's going to start to hit that part of the industry as well, because there won't be anything to work on from, new shoots or anything. So I think it's going to be maybe like a 3 to 6 month delay, from the production strikes to affect the post-production world. And their post-production as a concept is just, I mean, it could be a million things, right? So like for me with like marketing and trailers, like it's a very narrow slice of the post-production world, but if there's visual effects artists that are working on things that are supposed to be, shot, they're not going to have that work. And it'll be really interesting to see, those trickle down effects, because I think the last writer's strike was maybe like 2010, something like that, I want to say. Yeah, so it was really early in my career. I mean, I only started in 2006. And so I remember the same kind of thing. Like when it started, no effect on us whatsoever. But, after a few months, like you did notice a difference, because there's just fewer things that are coming in the door. And, it's tough. I think everybody, on a worker level, just normal people working in Hollywood, there's a lot of empathy for what they're asking for, and a lot of understanding. So nobody's angry that they're striking or anything like that. We're all kind of like, I get it. You're not asking for anything unreasonable. But I also hear, like, I just don't know where the money's going to come from, right? They're asking for more money, but just from like the whispers and how budgets are, it's like, where is it going to come from? Who knows?
Well, for what they say, actually today, this morning, it was already evening here, there in the United States, but they made a statement saying, we are not doing this strike for Tom Cruise. We are doing it for the people that actually they don't have so much money. And the thing is that what they say, it's a little bit weird, because they think that the executives they should make less money. And I don't know, if this is a big revolution, and actually, film industry usually is a groundbreaking for what happened in general to other industries, because artificial intelligence is not going to affect only film industry. Of course, it's about everything. So what I think is that they are showing to the world that there should be some kind of rebellion against the machines, because otherwise, the rich people will be way more richer. We see this really a lot here in in China, because we already have this kind of different, which is, there is not really the middle class. I live in an environment where there is the middle class, but it's not like in the rest of in the Western world. So the thing is, now in China, actually, people is getting unemployed because they are massively using artificial intelligence. Just this week, I completed, like a short film made in AI with runway, and just because they wanted the test, because a film company, they wanted to learn how to make everything. I say, look, I told them, I can do it, but then you need to fire a lot of people. And the Chinese people said, like, that's why we want to do it. So and here they used to have for something that usually we need 5 persons, they have 25. So that's going to be a huge problem. This is going to happen probably all over the world. But what I think, and I was talking with Jim Chapman, which is a common friend, we were saying, there is no way you can stop technology. That's the thing. I mean, you work with technology for what you do. You edit, you make compositing, you know how to use the engine. You know really well that in the moment, these small things can help you. I'm actually using a lot AI now, because it's just saving time. And I realized that you still need human beings to know what they do. I mean, but yeah, the situation, of course, is going to change more. There is a huge potential, and well, yesterday I watched Oppenheimer, and that's what the film say. It's not about the science, it's not about the technology, it's about the people who use it. It's not to make the invention, it's not the invention itself.
Yeah.
It's the way that you use it, and of course, it's possible that somebody is taking advantage of it. I might say something obvious, but this is what is going on.
Yeah.
And what's your perspective by a person which works in Hollywood industry and specifically in post production?
Yeah. Well, I think you got it exactly right in that there's no going back, like with technology. And I think with AI regulations proposed, whether it's part of a work agreement in Hollywood or a federal law or whatever it might be, none of that really matters. It can delay some uses, but just in the same way that, say, like, Chat GPT has its, like, let's call them filters or whatever they might be. So you can't ask it certain things, or it won't respond about, like if you ask it about sex or death or whatever, like it won't go there because, they're trying to be careful. And they can do what they decide, but somebody else is going to make one that you can have it do anything, and it's going to be just as good. And it's inevitable that these tools, so even if Hollywood comes to a deal, no AI actors, no AI writing, blah blah blah, somebody's going to make that technology still. Again, it's kind of the same.
It would be really simple, I mean, they decide to do it abroad.
Yeah.
You want to say it's the same thing, I mean, really often they come to shoot in Europe, in Bulgaria, in Malta. The Hollywood production, they even come to Italy now because now it's a third world country, Italy, and in Greece a lot, But anyway, now it's cheaper, and that nobody in the studios, or maybe they complain, I don't know, but in the studios in Hollywood, they say, "Oh, why don't you come to shoot Los Angeles and going to stay or New York in New York, because it's expensive. Why don't you come to shoot in Paris?" That's very simple. It's more expensive. The crew is less expensive, and they work 16 hours, 17 hours. So this has always happened.
They'll always find a loophole, right? Yeah. Like, and that's just money. I was going to say that's capitalism, but it happens everywhere. Like, if you can save money on something, the people that control the money are going to try to do it. Right. And so, if there is some workaround and, a Netflix can get an AI show that actually looks and feels like a real show, or even if it's not Netflix, maybe they're part of the deal that they make with the striking, writers and all that. But then some other streaming agency that doesn't care at all, can make that deal with other people that don't care at all, and they're going to put that out there. Or if it's the next TikTok or just something, it's going to happen. It's inevitable, right? And so it's tough. It's the Pandora's box. Like, you can't put it back in, and it's really hard to come up with any sort of plan, because what happens in 10 years when you can log into some website and have it generate a 10-minute Tom Cruise movie where he's in space, but it's a parody of 1950s, sci-fi, and it just generates it for you based on your web browser history and your likes and all that. Somebody is going to do that sometime, And
well, I think very soon, actually, mostly now that they are not doing anything, everybody's writing about it, about some story, when where there is Charles Bronson or James Dean in the film. And they are already developing it since a while, the technology. We are almost there. I want to ask you something. Is there a AI engine that is able to make a trailer?
I mean, there was a whole big gimmick about that. Like, maybe I want to say like 5 years ago, If you remember IBM's Watson, do you remember that big supercomputer that they built? It was more of a supercomputer than like an AI, because that was like the term at the time. But they had it cut a trailer for some movie from Fox that was about, I don't know, computers or AI or something like that. And it was sort of a stunt. I remember it was fine. It wasn't a terrible trailer, but it wasn't, definitely as good as a human one. But again, it's just a matter of time. At some point, AI will be able to do that. AI will be able to cut a movie trailer before it can make a movie, for sure.
Yeah. Sooner or later, they're going to get there. Even if I'm trying to get into the mind of the artificial intelligence, I'm
Mhm.
trying to find easier to understand through music.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make the music for this short film. I'm
Yep.
using AI engine called Eva, AIVA, and okay, I give a reference, and as much as I try, it cannot make the same, cannot make even closer. Probably I
Mhm.
gave something strange.
Yeah.
And so, but he gave me the chance to change it by
Yeah.
myself. But I have to change it. But
Yeah.
actually, I should change a lot. That's the thing. There will always be. I mean, it depends on the quality. It
Yeah.
depends on the quality. Probably for something as bad as some random cheap episode or whatever. Sometimes you have the feeling. Actually, I have to be honest. I'm sorry, everybody hates me for this, but I went to watch in theater the last Mission Impossible, and I felt it is a film against the artificial intelligence made by an artificial intelligence. That's
Mhm.
that's what I felt, because it was really really you can feel the scheme,
Mhm.
to make that kind of film. So that's the thing. And probably the artificial intelligence will be able to make something like this,
Yeah.
but people will get used and they will need more. So we will say that it's the AI generated content, they will be the cheap ones, but we will still have something
Yeah.
great, human, emotional, like Oppenheimer, or today we are
Yeah.
going to watch Barbie. And you cannot get there. It's not because of the level of technology you can reach, the level of machine learning can
Mhm.
evolve. That's the thing. You can trick it, as we
Mhm.
experience in VR. You actually can trick the brain, but you're not really having sex. That's the thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I didn't met yet anybody who told me it's better sex in VR than real sex. I don't know if you met any. I even was invited once in Hong Kong in a like adult industry convention. The topic was VR. I was the guy talking about VR. There were other people in the world doing it. Even if I didn't do anything related to sex, but they wanted some kind of like an expert.
Yeah.
And they gave me a lot of dildos as present, and the chubby ass,
I hope
to
you
bring
had
back.
fun going through airport
Yeah,
security with those. Yeah.
it was me. But anyway, the thing is, yeah. It was incredible. They made already a lot of incredible toys and tools, things like
Yeah.
this, But that's something that is a plus, or something, that indeed, it's something that you can add to what is human.
Yeah.
So hopefully we will still have a role in creativity
Yeah.
as
Well, you know
human.
what? I'm actually dealing with that right now at my current um, at my current work. So I'm a co-founder of a company, um, and we're essentially making like an Unreal based application in the web browser for people to make a commercial for their product. So if you have a watch that you're launching, or whatever gadget or something, and you
What's the
want
name?
like,
So let's say what's the name of the.
yeah, it's Glossy with an I, GLOSSI.io. So we're a startup. We're still super early, but more or less, we're trying
And
to
this
help people. What's that? .io.
Okay.
GLOSSI
Okay.
.io.
Rossi.io. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yep. So again, I come from the marketing world. So what we're trying to do, yep, GLOSSI, not Y.
I, not Y. Okay.
Yep. But all it is, we're trying to make a tool for entrepreneurs and small businesses to make a commercial for their product. That could compete with like an Apple product, a commercial. Like that kind of 30-second commercial. And one of the things that we're trying to figure out is, can we, if not, can we automate the editorial component at all? Or does it have to all be done by hand? So if you get a 30-second piece of music, for a commercial and you make an edit, like a video edit, is there a way that AI can help us accelerate it so that it's not one person cutting, 1,000 music tracks, to make it? And so what we're talking about, just to your point, is, if we can use AI to get us 90% there, and then have a human really take it over the edge and just say, okay, well, this is a bad cut, or like this moment falls flat, to uh, to make the emotional impact bigger at this point, right? So there's always going to be a human in the loop because we want to know that there is that emotional impact, right? And a machine doesn't know that. They might get us like great cuts, like a really, that cut is on the beat at that big drop in the music or whatever it might be. But we always, like, to me, it's really important to have that human in the loop, even though it might let us create more content. There you go. So all of this is done. This is not AI, but this is, essentially procedural. So you'll be able to put your product into this, and really like what we're trying to do. And this is the good side of AI, and we don't have any AI yet, but we're looking at it. Is what we're trying to do is just take the tedium and the barriers of content creation and make it so that anybody can do it. I would ask, like, I don't think you've ever done, work in 3D, right? You've never used Maya or 3D Studio Max or anything like that, right?
Blender.
Okay, well, Blender. So you have an introduction to it, right? And
Yeah.
how hard it can be, right? You open it up and you're a deer in headlights. You don't know what to do next. So we want to build something that you can go to and understand, plain language. You're only making creative decisions rather than trying to figure out the technicalities of a program. And that's where we want to use AI. So if you see your product and you say, like, well, it's made out of black plastic, rather than trying to build that from scratch, we just want you to say it's made out of black plastic. And then, the machine takes care of it. So really letting people focus on the creative decisions rather than figuring out the technology of how do I actually get this to work. And I think that's where AI can really be such a powerful assistant.
That's really interesting. And maybe I'm wrong, but let me say, probably this one is foreseeing what is going to happen when 3D printers we are going to take over, because sooner or later we are not going to get anything delivered home or go to buy in the shop. We're just going to 3D print everything, right? And this might be something that is bridging to that time, which is going to be in the next future. I mean, 20, 30 years probably.
Yeah. I mean, what we work with, one of the things that we want to do, again, like with the interest of breaking down barriers for, and really like for like, especially entrepreneurs, like we work with a lot of people that have never started their own business. And they had this idea, right? Like, I have an idea that I want to make a product. Like, I've always used these products and they're terrible, and I want to make one that does this, so mine's better. But this person, maybe they used to be an accountant, and now they're making a product, and it's a totally different world. They have no idea what to do with it. And so what
you
we
show them what really will look like.
Yeah.
Their idea.
Well, not only what it will look
great.
like, but give it like an emotion to it. But we also use just what they have. So if they have a product,
also helpful for pitching the project to fund it in some way.
Some people do, yeah, yeah. But what we do is we work with the data that they have. So if they only have that CAD file, like the digital, what they would actually send to get manufactured, they might not even ever have it manufactured. But we work with that, and then it's the same idea where it's like, okay, well, for us to get that into a commercial, ordinarily an artist would have to take it and spend a couple of days with it to get it just right. But we're trying to get that down to 10 minutes that you can do in your web browser and just say like, okay, yeah, that's red metal and that's painted purple. And then having people be able to like really engage on a creative level without having to worry about learning new concepts.
This is something that will really work in China because here it's pretty weird. I don't know if you experience it but actually, okay, I give you an example. Sometimes they call me for a commercial. Let's say that they say, look, we want to make a commercial about a yogurt peach taste. Did you ever made a commercial about a yogurt peach taste? Of course you don't.
Right.
But this is really common. Whoever works in China can tell you that they actually do this. And say like, we have a puppet that resembles a kangaroo. Did you ever market a kangaroo puppet? He said, no.
Of course not.
I did something different. Like no, but we need to see. I know how to use Blender because I do also the 3D visualization for interior design here, for Italian restaurants because they think only Italian are able to make a restaurant. That's a weird thing.
Of course.
And it's not possible to tell them, look, and here we are going to have a window with a picture of a dog. No, it's impossible. You have to show them.
You have to show them. Yeah.
They want to see it. So that's the kind of service that actually will work in China. Actually, I will represent the Glossy in China then if you want. I will say I'm Mr. Glossy because I don't understand why you choose an Italian word for your company.
I didn't know it was Italian. It was just
Italian, like Glossy. Yeah.
Perfect. But no, we it's for exactly that kind of thing where those of us that work in the creative industry, we're used to using our imaginations to take, like I was even saying about the movie trailers, right? When we would start
visualize, yes.
Yeah. You have to use your imagination. You have to visualize it. You might not be right, but you understand like, okay, there's a process. It's going to go from a word to maybe a pencil drawing to really put bad footage to like some rough visual effects to the final product. And that might be 2 years, right? And so if you're not able to visualize, that to get there, that's a skill that you develop, right? But there are a lot of people that's not going to be their skill, and that's okay. Not everybody has to be that way.
They do not develop it, in time. We make jokes because we are always clowning. So, but
being able to show those people, to be able to show those people and to bridge that gap of imagination is really powerful. Because a lot of people they're just like, oh, okay, well, I get it. The movie is going to be about X, Y, or Z, and maybe it'll be like this. But then when you can show them footage, set to music, with color and, creative decisions behind it, that's such a powerful experience. And so the faster we can get people to that point, the more powerful it's going to be, and that's what we want to do is really make it so that people can do that on their own and almost use AI as like a creative director, just so they could say like, hey, I want to build something that's like really colorful and poppy and fun. And then the AI can be like, okay, here's some options. What do you think? Do you like this one? Do you like that one? and then they can build that and then really feel like they're making decisions, and not just being served up pre-made content. So I think that's like that's an optimistic way of looking at the future.
No,
but I think
that's a creative way, and that's the right way. It's really fascinating. It's in philosophy, like Buddhist philosophy, they think that there is a place called the Acacian Fields, where all the thoughts of the idea, all the fantasies of human being dwells. And well, AI can make it real. You have an idea, you name it, and will come out. I mean, a service like yours is going to make it look, at least you can look, how it's going to be. So that's as you can see, actually, if you are creative, you find a way to use new technology as a tool.
Well, and that's what I've done with AI image generators. Like I don't even remember the one that I used, but like
Midjourney.
Yeah, like I was gonna say, like Midjourney, like that kind of thing.
Dalla. Actually, I want to suggest you and all the audience we have. I found recently a new one. It's called Let's Go.
Let's Go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you. That's perfect. I've been using in the last days this one, and give you you have a lot more of choices, and you can seed. You can seed. You can choose something to go in the direction of a result that the AI give you. You can, of course, put the references. You can, of course, choose the size. What is good, respect to, I don't know if Midjourney is doing it, but it gives you the chance to choose what you don't want to prompt.
Yep.
So that's good. The thing is that you say, okay, I want this, I don't want this. So you will save more time, because usually it's giving a lot of headache. But I was talking with a friend of mine about the use of AI. I want to know your opinion. The thing is that when you present this kind of project to people that they don't know anything about technology, and there's still people that they have the investment, they have the money, that they can be the clients, and they see the result you can give through the artificial intelligence, and we know it's not perfect. So it could happen the same thing that happened with VR when it was not perfect. People will say, okay, I didn't make money immediately. It's not perfect now.
Yeah, it could be a fad, and then it dies off.
No. I don't want to have anything to do with that. I don't want to waste my money. Let's wait 10 years, 15 years, next generation, whatever, you really know that there is this kind of attitude when we are dealing with new technology.
Yeah, and you've already actually seen that with ChatGPT, where its daily active users has actually dropped off. Even though it had a very huge skyrocketing start, it started to fall off a little bit. I wouldn't be worried about it. I mean, tons of people still use it, but it's sort of like, to your point, it's the novelty factor at the beginning, where people are like, oh my God, this is this new crazy thing. I want to try it. I want to experience it. And then after they do, they kind of move on to the next thing. And it doesn't really become part of their day-to-day life, And so I think that's exactly what will happen with a lot of it, where it's like a really fun, cool, like toy, but it's not good enough yet to make it part of your day-to-day life. But then, just the same with VR, over time, that technology will improve and improve and improve to the point where suddenly one day you're like, oh, I have to use this. Like, why wouldn't I use this? And that time scale can be very different. It can be months, it can be years, it can be decades, based on whatever the technology is. But that's what is it? There's a term for it. It's like the curve of disillusionment or something like that, where it's like, there's a hype that it skyrockets, and then people get tired of it, and then it plummets. And then it slowly builds itself back up over time, and then it finally gets to that point again when it's actually mature.
Okay, the curve of disillusion.
Yeah, I gotta find it now. I don't know the term. It's about like a hype bubble. Yeah.
Back to VR. There has always been a problem. You say, okay, They need content, but there is no platforms. The platforms, they want content. Nobody pay for the content, so you cannot have something to feed the platforms and blah blah blah, and the content is not good enough. So I was thinking, what is going on now there? For example, yesterday I watched Oppenheimer. Of course, there is a big nuclear explosion. Before the pandemic, in 2016, 17, I don't remember, I did a VR experience, actually 360 short film with a nuclear explosion. You are inside of a nuclear explosion. And I was thinking, oh, maybe now it's the time to take it out from wherever it is, and try to market, because it's something similar to Oppenheimer. So now, because now for a short time, but people is going to talk about nuclear explosion. You say, okay, we give it a 360 nuclear explosion. But what I could do, what I do when I have some content that is finally in the right time, and where is the right place to place it? Your opinion, I mean,
in like if we were going to build content like that, like how do you do it? Is that the question?
No, I mean, in this case, I have already this kind of content, but I mean, I don't understand where is now the right platform to market.
Where would you put it? Yeah, trying to get that out there. Yeah, it's tricky because it's there is sort of like become the more extremes of there's always been, the better the experience, the harder it is to access. The worse the experience, the easier it is to access. So it was the Google Cardboard, where you do that. That's the easiest to access, but it's the worst experience, right? Whereas if you go to like a location-based experience, it's going to give you the best experience. You might be able to walk around 100 meters,
I cannot reach so many people because
but it's exactly right. And so right now, we kind of have these extremes of that, where if you want to reach a lot of people, you probably, your best bet would just be, if it's not interactive, you could do a YouTube 360 video, right? Because you can still get YouTube on a VR headset, and it's a totally, mature platform. I remember in the early days, there were a lot of services that were out there that were like, we're going to be the YouTube of VR, we're going to be the YouTube of VR. And then a year later, it was like, no, YouTube is going to be the YouTube of VR. Like, there's nothing special. Like, they just have to essentially support a new codec, and then it's good to go, right? So for a 360 video,
it didn't happen with Meta. Now,
no, and you know what? Nobody wants to pay for a 360 video because whether it's because of YouTube or whatever it might be, it's just not a business model, right? So it has to be put out for free. If you want to make money on it, you really are going to need to sink money into it. You have to build a game or a true experience. The PC VR market is it's just too small to really survive on. You really have to put it on the Meta Quest. Even PSVR 2 has done pretty well for what it is, but the barrier to entry to making a PlayStation experience is pretty high. And even the Meta Quest, like, they have you can't, not just anybody can put out something for it. You have to go through their whole process. They become more like a game publisher, like a Nintendo or a PlayStation, where they have to actually say, yes, you can release your game or your experience on our platform. And they don't do that for every single thing. So it's really hard to put out these like middle experiences where, like, what we had done for Spider-Man is Spider-Man. It can go wherever it wants just because of the name. But something like The Walk, not a huge blockbuster movie, not a small movie, somewhere in between.
Academy Award winner,
Yeah, but like those kinds of things are difficult to put out. And so I wouldn't be able to release that today in the same way that we did. It was a promotional thing, so we did take it into movie theaters and showed it to people. But that's almost more valuable for the press than it is for the actual experience, and you don't get that anymore. If somebody put a VR experience in a theater today, people would do it in the theater, they would enjoy it, but it's not going to like make headlines or anything like that. So your only options are to really make like an expensive, large, interactive game or experience, or a free 360 video.
Yeah.
And those are the only viable paths.
And this show us in some way that it's still hard, to find a way for XR. Also not recently, actually, no, I think it was already 2 years ago. Somebody told me, we want to try to make in China a VR game, like VR game for PlayStation, like PlayStation, yep. Xbox, like there is some of them, I studied a little bit the market. They are cheap. And they sell them cheap, that's the truth. I mean, it's like $20.
Yeah.
Because of course, you cannot make a really long game. It's
exactly. You can't get that 60-hour game. Yeah.
It makes sense, to have something where you can do gym. I bought Creed, you can punch.
Yep.
You see my stories. I like to do boxing. So that's the thing. It's something that can last longer. That makes sense, but
and you know what? You're not going to be able to have that experience for a long time because, like I was saying, until the hardware is what people think or expect, they're not going to be in it. So until it is literally a pair of glasses that you can just put on like that and fire up, and it's comfortable, and there's some sort of better solution for any sort of motion sickness. Until that happens, it's always going to be a niche audience.
Yeah.
And again, that thing will come someday. Whether it's 6 months or 50 years is anybody's guess. But until that happens, like that is a really big barrier toward getting that like 50-hour game or a 50-hour experience or a metaverse where you just like, I'm going to go hang out tonight in this place for a few hours. Who cares how long it is? That's where like sort of like the physical of the hardware, matches the or informs the social aspect of it too. Because whether we think it matters or not, putting on a big headset, a lot of people just feel dumb. I don't care.
Yeah. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, and again, so they're not going to feel comfortable until it is just a pair of sunglasses that they can put on.
Or contact lenses already.
Or whatever's next, right? But it's like something that's not big and bulky and looks funny. And when it's invisible like that or easy, that is going to be a huge shift. And
so
who knows?
This leads me to the question of the questions when we talk about virtual reality, which is, so I think you've been thinking about it as every one of us. What virtual reality can give to the audience more than anything they can do without wearing an headset?
Mm-hmm. It speaks to me in the kind of films and content that I've always enjoyed. And it's those, I've always liked the movies that I can lose myself in the world, right? Where it's, especially for when I was a kid with George Lucas and Steven Spielberg movies, where they really create this world that you just want to be in, right? And that was that 2-hour movie. And then when you're done with the movie, your imagination takes you back there. So for me, that's where I really love the VR and immersive content, where it puts you into a world that you can't experience in real life, and you want to go back there, and that could be a million things. That's such a personal decision or a personal taste of like, I like cartoons, or I like science fiction, or I like nature, or whatever it might be. That's such a personal thing.
Right.
But what I love is just like the attention to um, building those worlds that have like a really unique and artistic sense of place. You know, where I can put on a headset, like I don't even need to do anything necessarily, but if I can be in that world, in that environment, and I feel something different, you know, that I can't feel in real life, you know, that alone, like that's a win to me. Um, and it's less about the game or you know the actions that you take, and more about the world that's created. And you know that's what the metaverse is supposed to be ultimately. It's about creating worlds or whatever you know you want to call them, or experiences. um, but to me the most powerful ones are um, it's sort of like you know how a filmmaker or a painter puts their personality and their art onto a 2D
Yeah.
screen. It's the same thing, but putting it into not just depth, but space. You know, and it's such a unique and powerful moment because it can take you to places that are physically not possible, right? And I think that's what it is because what's really fun about VR and really powerful is it is like what we were talking about, that tricking of your mind, or tricking of your subconscious into believing you are in a place,
It's
right?
unbelievable power.
Yeah.
Unbelievable power.
And so to do that, like what I love is when you can trick your mind into believing that you're in a place, but that place is physically impossible,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
like that contrast is so powerful, and there's no other way to do that. Literally, like a movie can't do that. You know, 2D flat content cannot do that.
Yeah, yeah, you
And
can
so
play
that's
with
why,
physics. Or you can literally
yeah,
play with physics. That's the power that was inspiring the film The Lawnmower Man. No, you know, I mean, the fact that he
yeah,
was able to to gain this kind of power. Well, thank you, Jake. Thank you. It was really interesting to talk with you. You know, I mean, I was hoping to catch you just for 1 hour, but I stole
all good.
more of your money. But it's been a really interesting. Thank you very much. I hope I can come with my family to visit in Los Angeles. Before I was coming often in LA, but now it's become more complicated to move with a baby and
Yeah, yeah,
all the situation. At the same time, you know, unfortunately, you cannot come to visit so easily China anymore because here convention are not anymore happening, or I don't know if they
uh,
invite you sometimes, but you know,
yeah.
the 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 circle here looks like it's been fattered away. You know, I don't know how to, but anyway, you know,
That's
I'm
a
pretty
shame.
sure that there will be another chance, and whenever you want to give you update about Glossy
Yeah,
or other things that you're doing, you're welcome in the channel. You know, we talk together, and I'm really happy. You know, it's you see, this is just like talking between friends about things, and also promoting
yeah.
the things that you're doing.
No, that's amazing. I really appreciate it. I was so glad to hear from you. And you are always welcome in Los Angeles. I would love to host you. And
I'm happy to see that you are sane. I mean that this, you know, this is what the film that I did during the pandemic is about. You know that humanity is getting crazy. You know,
mhm.
and I see you are still stable and you have your balance. You know,
I put
you're
on a
kind
good
of
show. Yep.
an American monk. Jack Black.
No, you know what? I'm not. I won't lie. Life has been hard the last few years, and
Oh,
I'm
God.
sure for a lot of other people, way harder than I have had it. But I think we've all kind of been through a really weird, you know, time period, and it's going to take a long time to get back to some sense of normalcy. You know, like many years. And so it's important to work toward that. And you know, especially like seeing you in China was such an important part of my life, like in the pre-pandemic days. And I still haven't gotten back into that kind of world. And even if I can only see you over video, it's like it brings me back to really feeling part of that bigger world. So I'm so glad to talk to you.
Love you, man. That's been great.
Yeah, love you too.
Okay, thank you for your time. It's evening now in Los Angeles, so I guess you have to go to rest or eat something. So thank you very much.
I gotta refill my whiskey.
Okay. This is why we were chatting so much. Anyway, I'm going to stay a little bit more with the audience, so I summarize what we've been saying in Italian.
Yep.
You can go. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon again. We talk privately.
Thanks.
And,
appreciate it, John.
Have a good night.
You too. Take care.
Take care, man.
Bye.
Ok, abbiamo ringraziato Jake Black, no? Come vi dicevo, io adesso gli mando un bel messaggio. Ok, per chi non l'avesse capito, per chi non parla inglese, però raga, imparate l'inglese. Tra l'altro, vedete che bella voce che c'ha. Grazie, gli scrive in Italian. Thank you very much. Very much su Facebook. I'm a bit about. Parlo un po' di te. What you said. What? Aspettate, To not di voi, not English speaking. Perché sapete che io potrei fare i sottotitoli con l'AI, con Premiere, oppure potrei mettermi e riguardare il video e intanto fare il mio doppiaggio, ma invece sono pigro e preferisco che voi mi state ad ascoltare. Come avete sentito, per quanto riguarda il discorso che stiamo facendo spesso dello strike, no? dello sciopero che c'è lì a Los Angeles, pure lui dice vabbè, ma tanto insomma non è una cosa che si può fermare, ma comunque loro che stanno anche lavorando con l'AI, lui praticamente fa i trailer per i film hollywoodiani. Quando vedete un trailer l'ha fatto lui. Loro, dice, iniziano a lavorarci già dalla sceneggiatura, senza avere neanche il film in sé. Poi ovviamente cambia diverse volte. E adesso un po' stanno cambiando perché vogliono sempre più qualcosa che spieghi direttamente all'audience di che cosa si tratta. Per questo, no? Voi vedete che adesso sembrano praticamente identici al film, solamente che sono un riassunto. I trailer sono un po' così, però questo comunque è adesso il mercato. E ho chiesto, ma ci sono anche delle AI che fanno questa cosa? No, in realtà hanno provato a farlo già da un po' di tempo, qualcosa è venuto fuori decente, però non è come quello che farebbe un essere umano. Dicevamo appunto, il discorso è che ci sta un aspetto che l'artificial intelligence, al di là della tecnologia, c'è un aspetto umano che non riescono a catturare. E questo aspetto umano è quello che creerà le esperienze di un livello superiore rispetto a quelle di un livello inferiore, di contenuti, per dire, no? Cioè adesso voglio dire, lo vedete la differenza, c'è un film per che ne so, non voglio citare, però insomma qualcosa di magari molto cheap. Io ho parlato male di Mission Impossible perché l'ho trovato un po' fatto così, però insomma una cosa molto semplice rispetto a qualcosa magari che è super cinematico, come appunto può essere Oppenheimer, no? E quindi che è qualcosa che è più lungo, che è fatto per il cinema, che ha un aspetto visivo particolare. Quindi questo lui dice, però intanto noi adesso non abbiamo problemi, noi che facciamo post-produzione, lui non è parte dello sciopero perché lui non lavora con le union, però dice poi più avanti magari non avevo più clienti perché non c'è niente da fare. Secondo me no. Quindi in realtà la post-produzione prenderà più potere, saranno quelli che si troveranno meglio da questo punto di vista. E niente, insomma, poi abbiamo un po' parlato, questo Glossy.io e la sua compagnia, loro praticamente che fanno? Tu sei uno così, hai un'idea, dici ma io voglio inventare pupazzo per far mordere i cani che sembra come Biden, oppure vorrei fare una mano per prendere le cose, però c'hai st'idea, loro te la previsualizzano, cioè ti fanno la previsualizzazione, ti fanno vedere che cos'è, creano proprio il marketing, come tu vedi la pubblicità di qualcosa che non esiste, può essere fatto tutto digitalmente. Questo è con qualcuno che ha esperienza di marketing, anche appunto grazie al lavoro che ha fatto per tanto tempo con Hollywood. Quindi quello che dicevamo è, vedete, insomma, se tu sei creativo, non è che perdi il lavoro, anzi te ne inventi di nuovi lavori grazie all'artificial intelligence. Questo è quello che bisogna fare. Tant'è che mo facciamo la stessa cosa in Cina, che lui ha dato il suggerimento. Ecco, il punto è, insomma, parlavamo appunto di quello che ha fatto lui come la prima esperienza dal film documentario che ha vinto l'Oscar, Man on Wire, che parla della storia di questo Jacques Petit, che era un trapezzista che aveva fatto questa traversata delle Torri Gemelle, ecco. E loro avevano fatto la VR Experience, no? Che ti dava appunto la sensazione di vertigine perché facevi la stessa cosa. E poi da lì è arrivate le due esperienze di Spiderman, che sono state famosissime, probabilmente le più note, anche perché lui dice, sì, vabbè, erano gratis, in Cina le fanno pagare, che gli frega. E però comunque ti davano questa sensazione molto potente insomma di volare, ecco, di sparare, insomma lui faceva vedere pure, questo era soprattutto nella seconda. E poi parlavamo un po' di com'è l'industria della realtà virtuale, che comunque la gente non paga per i video a 360, insomma può pagare qualcosa per i videogiochi, non siamo ancora lì, però una cosa intelligente che ha detto è che, ok, ha parlato proprio di questa curva delle delusione, ecco, più di una volta, cioè il fatto che comunque c'è un trend, si dice sto VR è una cosa bellissima, oppure anche ChatGPT è una cosa fighissima, poi la gente prova e la stragrande maggioranza dice ma in realtà a me non mi ha fatto un cazzo, cioè non mi piace per niente, e quindi c'è un crollo, poi lentamente si alza verso la stabilizzazione. Questo è molto importante perché anche nella realtà virtuale praticamente si è creato un ecosistema che non è quello incredibile che era agli inizi, ma è qualcosa che comunque si assesta da qualche parte e che va nella direzione molto lentamente del momento in cui ci saranno bene o male gli occhiali o comunque le lenti a contatto che permetteranno a tutti di fare questo. Detto, perché uno dovrebbe fare una cosa del genere proprio perché secondo lui perché ti porta in un mondo in cui non hai in cui le leggi della fisica, ecco, questo l'ho detto io, insomma, sono differenti, sono incredibili. Vabbè, Jake è un ragazzo proprio in gamba, come avete visto, è una persona che ha fatto la sua strada, ha trovato la sua strada all'interno dell'industria cinematografica, come tanti ancora possono fare, e non si tira indietro quando ci sono nuove tecnologie, quando c'è stata la possibilità, hanno proposto, insomma, loro fanno trailer, hanno detto facciamo le VR Experience, questo li ha portati ad avere molta più visibilità, molto più successo. Continua a fare delle cose, continua a provarci, ci sono dei momenti che sono duri, come ha detto lui, però insomma alla fine riesci in qualche modo ad andare avanti, riesci a trovare una svolta per la tua esistenza, insomma, quindi è stata una buona chiacchierata. Noi cerchiamo sempre con questo canale di dare una prospettiva diversa alla gente di quello che vuole fare, di quello che vuole raccontare, e soprattutto senza essere faziosi. Purtroppo sia lì negli Stati Uniti che in Italia anche si vede che è tutto molto diviso, no? Insomma, la gente pensa che perché sono in Cina, queste sono cose che hanno fatto anche saltare delle live, perché la gente è convinta che perché loro sono tifosi di una squadra lo debba essere anche tu. Io in realtà devo dire, insomma, non so neanche da 20 anni almeno che ha vinto lo scudetto, e non ho quel tipo di attitudine. Cioè la squadra è la mia ed è quello che io riesco a capire da quello che succede. E prendere dalle esperienze altrui, da punti di vista diversi. Ecco, noi adesso abbiamo avuto questo punto di vista, io vi posso dare il punto di vista della Cina, insomma, o parleremo anche con altra gente, comunque gente che ha la percezione, che ha vissuto in posti diversi, in modo tale che poi possiamo capire. Speriamo al più presto di avere altri ospiti che vivono all'estero, magari se parlano in Italia, se parlano italiano ancora meglio. Comunque, insomma, vi ringrazio se vi è stato utile, se vi sembra interessante. Se secondo voi questo canale merita più di altri canali che vedete, o merita almeno tanto quanto altri canali che vedete su Twitch o su YouTube, che parlano di cose interessanti o meno, se secondo voi merita questo canale, condividetelo, promuovetelo, iscrivetevi, mettete un like, commentate. Cioè, secondo voi, se invece non ve ne frega assolutamente niente, se secondo voi in generale non debba fregare assolutamente niente quello di cui parliamo, come dice Cicalone, prendete sto microfono e infilato tra le chiappe. Okay.